toward Egypt,
but it shall not be as the former.
but it wasn't going to go down like the first time. Now let me say this. I'm going to come on over here. In other words, the first time around, you notice right here, I have written, it's verses 25 through 30. The Sixth Syrian War, part 1, 170 BC. That was when he received a threat of war. So he went and advanced and met Ptolemy and defeated him, tried to set him up as a puppet room. It didn't go down. He went on, like I said, he left with an understanding that that's what was going to happen. But it didn't. Well, in the meantime, he headed back on up toward the north. I'm still here. Headed on back up to, let me come over here. That battle took place in 170 BC. Headed on back up toward the north. So we can imagine this whole area now and Egypt being yellow. Because for now it's under what? It's under Seleucid influence. Alright? So it says he headed on back up and his heart was set toward the people of the covenant. In other words, he destroyed Jerusalem. We just read about it. Took the showbread. Did everything. It said, but he was thinking that a second time to go down into Egypt. Now this is part 2. This was 2 years later. Take your time, Justin. This was 2 years later in 168 BC. The first of the Sixth Syrian War, he won. The second one, what did the verse say on the exercise? I want you to stay on point out, all right? Your host, come on.
And verse 29, at the time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter.
In other words, it wasn't going to go down like it was. Now I'm going to show you what it means when he said it. Well, I'm going to go to the book of read on down.
Verse 30. For the ships of Chpt.
That's what I was waiting for. For the ships of Chpt. Now remember, during the time of Antiochus III, what do we find out about the ship? The reason it said a prince on his behalf was operating out of where? Was operating out of Cyprus, the particular region of Sicily, as you can see. So it said, for this second time, Antiochus IV, Epiphanes, the first time he had success, but the second time in 168, it said he would be what? He would be, read it again.
For the ships of Chpt shall come against him.
The ships of Chpt was talking about, remember. If you can remember back during the time of Antiochus III, the Romans had kicked him out and put him under indemnity. So the Romans were still there. So Antiochus IV, whose surname was Epiphany, met the same fate as his father. He was on his way down, and I think the guy's name was Gaius Popilius. I'm going to read his name, but he ended up meeting in a place called Pelusium, right entering into Egypt. Antiochus Epiphanes ran into a Roman general who was sent on behalf of the Senate to tell him to get out of Cyprus, to get out of all the lands from Caria to Cilicia. You know what happened? He asked this cat, Gaius, I'm going to read his name off. He asked him, could he have time to think about it? You know what that dude did? The Roman general did? The Roman general drew a line around Antiochus Epiphanes in the sand. He said, before you leave that, I need an answer for the Roman Senate. That's what the term, that is the circumstance where the term a line in the sand, that phrase, come from that circumstance. That's what the historians say. The old saying, this is the line in the sand. This drawing a line in the sand. It means a decision has to be made. Well, this Roman senator drew a line In other words, he encircled Antiochus Epiphanes and told him before he left that circle, he needed an answer for the Roman Senate. And Antiochus Epiphanes understood what? He understood that if the answer was no, he was going to be officially at war with the Roman Republic. He understood that if the answer was yes, he would withdraw, then of course he was going to be at peace. So he actually conceded, and it wasn't until then that this particular general shook his hand, and that was he got thrust out of here. That's what that's talking about. Now we're going to read that. What verse was that?
Verse 13.
I want you to read that verse again, and then we'll read the brief history on it.
For the ships of Chpt shall come against him.
Is that the whole verse?
Yes, just the beginning.
From the beginning?
Yeah.
Then read verse 29.
Verse 29. At the time appointed, he shall return.
It's talking about the king of the north. Go ahead.
And come toward the south. But it shall not be as the former, or as the latter.
Go ahead.
For the ships of Chpt,
It's talking about the Romans who were occupying that became one of their territories. Go ahead.
Shall come against him.
In other words, they kicked him out. Continue.
Therefore he shall be grieved and return.
Okay. Now this is what I'm going to do. We're going to read about that. First, I'm going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 5. It's a lot, but we're going to get it done. 2 Maccabees chapter, it ain't a whole lot, but I'm just saying it's a lot. We're moving, we're going a lot of places. This is in 2 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 1. It's just verses 1, 2, and 3. It says, about the same time, Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt. And then it happened that through all the city, for the space of almost 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air. These were the apparitions the Most High was giving people in the ancient days when great decisive battles were being taken or were to unfold. There were seen horsemen running in the air in cloth of gold and armed with lances like a band of soldiers. Verse 3. Yeah.
And troops of horsemen in array, encountering and running one against another, with shaking of shields, and multitude of pikes, and drawing of swords, and casting of darts, and glittering of golden ornaments, and harness of all sorts. Wherefore, every man prayed.
That's verse 3. Okay, now, the next thing we're going to go to is the complete works of Josephus, book 12, chapter 5. Antiquities, book 12, chapter 5, and I'm going to read paragraph 2. It says, now Antiochus, upon this agreeable situation, of the affairs of his kingdom, I mean, he had just gotten defeating Egypt prior. Then he went and laid Jerusalem waste, basically created a temple and left. He was satisfied with that. So about 2 years later, it'll tell you that. About 2 years later, he decided, now Antiochus, upon the agreeable situation of the affairs of his kingdom, resolved to make an expedition against Egypt, meaning a second trip. Both because he had a desire to gain it, and because he contemned the son of Ptolemy as now weak. Remember I told you he was a child. And not yet of abilities to manage the affairs of such consequence. So he came with great forces to Pelusium, or to Pelusium, like I pointed to that area down there, to Pelusium, and circumvented Ptolemy Philemon by treachery, and seized upon Egypt. He then came to the places at Memphis, about Memphis, and when he had taken them, he made haste to Alexandria, in hopes of taking it by siege, and of subduing Ptolemy, who reigned there. But he was driven not only from Alexandria, but out of all Egypt by the declaration of the Romans, who charged him to let that country alone. In other words, that's what it meant when he said the ships to tell. You understand? Now what does it say he would do after that?
Verse 1 from the top. For the ships of Chpt